Welcome back to the Fapstinence podcast. I'm your co-host Peter, and I'm with Kevin, of course. Today we're going to be talking about No Nut November. And is it even a serious thing? We all hear about No Nut November, I think, more than the idea of nofap in general, because it's a pretty trending thing around this time of year. And so, since we're getting close to that time, I thought it would be good for Kevin if you could tell us a little bit about your nofap journey. Because it started last year around this time of year when you did a 30-day challenge on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about that, and about your experience, your progress through that, and your life now, because it's a journey.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So what's really cool about No Nut November is just a little bit of background, and it kind of started off as like a meme, right? Because I imagine that it was kind of a spin off of like No Shave November. Conveniently, I'm doing that right now too with my beard.
I see you're rocking the Viking look.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna try to grow this out all the way up to the new year.
I
But
love it.
anyway, yeah. So it kind of started off with that, and you know how internet memes go. They just kind of catch fire for no reason. It's kind of hard to tell where they even start from. But No Nut November, when I got into it last year in 2019, it had already been a thing for about a year or two. And what's really interesting is right around November, it was more accurately in October, I came to this realization of me being like hopelessly addicted to pornography. So conveniently, November is right around the corner. So I was like, hey, you know what? I already know about No Nut November. I've heard about it before. Might as well try it out. And I was able to complete the challenge, which is really cool. And what's really cool too about No Nut November is, you know, it's something that like men in general are very, very competitive. I'm an extremely competitive person. So when I know that there's all these guys who are trying to accomplish this great feat of, it's not just masturbation, it's like no sex, it's basically abstinence, right?
Yeah.
Or Fapstinence, as we like to call it. But yeah, so being able to do that for 30 days, I mean, so many guys just like, almost no one's able to accomplish it. It's almost like this impossible feat. So with me being able to accomplish that, first of all, it made me realize how addicted I actually was to pornography, right? Because if I wasn't that addicted, it wouldn't be that difficult. I could just stop. So it made me really realize the extent to my addiction, but also it gave me some hope seeing that, hey, it's possible. It's possible for me to accomplish this great feat, And again, the fact that it's kind of like this meme thing, I think it's the attraction and the draw behind it, the reason so many guys attempt it, it's way deeper than just actually it being a meme. I think it's actually
Right.
it's more so like, okay, well, it's a joke, but we all are kind of seriously trying to actually quit this thing because we all know deep down it's a problem. And for me, by doing it kind of more for the lulz, I came to that realization. And now what's really cool is, I've further adopted a lifestyle. For me, I've been addicted for like 13 years, so I haven't fully
Yeah.
kicked it, but I've really understood a lot better the things that, trigger me, the things I need to do to get better.
Mm.
And I'm like so far along the journey just because I kind of took that attitude of instead of tiptoeing into the nofap lifestyle, I kind of just like did a cannonball into the pool. So I
Yeah.
just dove right in and see if I would swim or if I would drown. So luckily I didn't drown and I'm still standing. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great kickstart to it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm a No Nut November success story.
I like that, Kevin. And I think it's a really important to focus on those success stories at times because there is a feeling of hopelessness for a lot of guys about whether or not they can kick this thing, especially how many people feel the same way that you do, that I've been dealing with this for 13 years. I've tried everything there is to try. I can't do it. It's not possible. And for something to be not addictive, that's a pretty tough situation to be in. I say not
Hmm.
addictive in quotes here because it really does act like a addiction, a real chemical addiction. And so, first of all, I think one of the things we're trying to do on this podcast is really to combat that feeling of hopelessness and to let people know, hey, look, No Nut November is a chance for you to maybe try to take this thing seriously and to see what's going to happen. If you do a cannonball in like Kevin, are you going to sink to the bottom, or are you going to be able to tread water? Is it going to be difficult? Is it even going to be worth it? So, Kevin, with that in mind, I think we should be talking a little bit about the claims around No Nut November, what the benefits are, and what's real and what's fake out there.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, No Nut November kind of started off as a meme, and when things start off as kind of a joke, there's kind of other, jokes attached to that in the sense of, okay, well, what's the reasoning for wanting to do No Nut November? Well, you're going to, after 1 week, you're going to gain superpowers. The girls won't be able to resist you. You're just going to start levitating off the ground, and you'll start shooting lasers out of your eyeballs. It's like, people take it a bit too far, obviously, and obviously those things aren't actually true, but some guys actually do believe. There's kind of like this mysticism that's around, like, quitting porn and not masturbating,
Right.
because it's such a pervasive thing now, where it's just like, it's so unbelievable. We talk about this on the podcast all the time. It's like weirder to hear someone say, "Hey, I don't watch porn at all," than it is for you to hear someone saying, "I watch porn 3 times a day." So I think kind of unconsciously in our minds, because we think that it's such an unbelievable feat, we start kind of unconsciously connecting these superpowers to it, such as like being super mega hyper focused, becoming this apex level high performer, being able to bench press like, 50 more pounds because you have so much higher testosterone. There's hints of truth to some of these things, but, a lot of it's more just for the lulz, for the meme. But at the same time, there is some truth to some of those. So I think we should talk about it. But we're very scientific with this podcast, obviously. So do you want to talk about maybe some of the actual benefits that you've observed, Peter?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think, first of all, it is important to recognize that there are clear benefits out there, amazing benefits, and a lot of them are going to come down to your relationships, your ability to reprioritize your life and see things through a better lens. One of the things that I noticed in my journey was just kind of astounding, is how quickly I was able to kind of realize how self-centered my thoughts have become, utilitarian, really, in approaching other people. And I don't mean it from a sexual perspective necessarily, but in every avenue of my life. Watching porn as a medium is instant gratification, and it's a way to get what you want without having to consider the other person's needs. And so interestingly enough, that ends up pervading other areas of your life. You're not necessarily intentionally treating other people as tools for your gain, but it tends to be a mindset that creeps in. And so for me, one of the biggest things I recognized was, holy cow, I have more empathy now that I'm quitting this, because I'm not so focused on that. And the other aspect of it too is the reason why people think it's crazy, the reason why people think you have superpowers from this, is because it takes a level of self-control that most people aren't willing to master right now. They're not willing to master themselves. And guess what takes mastery, Kevin? Being successful at your job, being successful in relationships, starting a company. All these things take a level of self-discipline that is not promoted in today's world for some reason on the same level that it used to be. Delayed gratification is a very useful tool. And there's so many people prominent right now, like Jordan Peterson, who are constantly talking about it because it's a lost art that people don't know. Well, if you want to quit porn, you need to have delayed gratification. You need to have an end goal, something you're aiming towards. And just by doing something like No Nut November, other people are going to look at you differently too. They're going to be like, whoa, dude, that's pretty cool that you did that for a month. And that's going to creep into their head maybe too at a certain point. It's going to be this. One of the things I think is so cool about No Nut November is it ends up becoming this thing where if you find out somebody did that, you're like, wow, I didn't know people could do that. Maybe I could do that.
Yeah, it's inspiring, and you're so right. It's like I actually had a short little consultation with a guy today, he owns and operates kind of like a startup, which is one of the toughest things you can do. And with him, he's really porn addicted. And even with him, he literally said quitting porn is harder than anything I've ever done in my life. So if you're able to, even just for a temporary period of time, just see what that feels like, just purposefully kind of throw yourself into the crucible that is No Nut November, and trying to abstain from an addiction that you've built up over the years, and try to completely abstain for it for an entire month. The amount of things that you discover about yourself, of what you're capable of doing. Like, even for me during No Nut November, like, I was able to, sexual transmutation is really important, which we'll talk about in another episode. But I was able to transmute that heightened energy and that heightened kind of appreciation for life into exercise. My background's in fitness, but I never really liked doing cardio that much. But I found myself breaking new PRs in like my mile time and running longer distances, things that I typically hate, because comparatively, right, I would kind of unconsciously compare it to like, well, it's not as hard as nofap is, right, of doing a 30-day No Nut November streak. Compared to that, me pushing this extra 400 meters to try to break my mile time really isn't that difficult. So you gain that perspective, and it's amazing, man. Even 1 year out, I still remember vividly. I remember the month of November very vividly, which I think is very interesting, because it was just such a special time in my life. I don't want to hype this up too much, but it really is that incredible. You really discover so much about yourself as a man.
Which can be humbling too, I imagine, Kevin.
Absolutely, because it's like, it's not comfortable to admit to yourself that something just has complete control over you, especially something that you would never really expect and you never even considered before, because it's so normalized. Right. So it's very humbling. Yes.
Yeah. I also think one of the other really intriguing aspects of No Nut November is, because of its origin from meme, if you want to call it that, it's a kind of a safe space to dive into the idea of a Fapstinence lifestyle, and to kind of realize, as we mentioned, this is possible. It doesn't take superpowers to do. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it takes reprioritizing your life. Yes, it takes delayed gratification. But I think what you'll find is, if you take No Nut November seriously, you'll have some setbacks, very naturally so. But that you'll recognize it's not impossible. And if it is something you want to do, it's worth doing. And so it's the one time of year that we can openly admit to people, hey, I'm trying to quit porn. And still being able to do it under the guise of, but it's for No Nut November. So,
Yep. Yeah. And one thing that we always preach on here, well, not preach, but, it's like, the psychology is really clear on what makes behavior change so hard. It's actually the environment. That's the number one thing that drives behavior change. So one big part of environment is accountability, but also just your immediate environment, the people that you surround yourself with. So even if you can just make it like kind of a joke and say, hey guys, we should try the stupid No Nut November thing I found on the internet. Want to try it? Like, you can actually make fun of your boys and just be like, what are you scared? Whatever,
Right.
I'm trying
Make
to
it
keep
a challenge.
I would use different words. I'm trying to keep it PC. But
challenge.
Yeah. It's like, dude, what? You scared to do this challenge? Come on, man.
Why
are you so scared, bro?
You little dummy.
Dunderhead. We have to try to keep it PC in case anyone
keep it PC,
underage is
keep
listening.
it PG.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, so you can kind of create your and again, this is why it's so great, because it appeals to the challenge part of us, the part of us as men that wants a great challenge. So if you challenge your immediate friends to try to do it too, you guys can kind of team together, hold each other accountable, and then you could also bring out that competitive side in you to be like, hey, I'm not going to let freaking Carl beat me in No Nut November, so I'm not going to fap, right? Yeah. So that brings out the competitive side in you, and it's really important, because if you don't surround yourself with guys like that, then but you're always constantly hanging around them, the chances of you relapsing are going to be much higher.
Right.
right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool way to introduce this idea to your immediate friends, which otherwise it might be a weird conversation to talk about.
Right.
But at the same time, it significantly heightens your chances of succeeding in this because the people you surround yourself with are in it with you too, even if it's under the guise of being a joke, right? So it's very, very effective. And if you don't have the right environment set up and you're just constantly just using willpower and that's it to try to succeed, you're inevitably going to relapse.
You're setting yourself up for failure if you don't have accountability. And I think you put a really good emphasis on environment here because, in my mind, if you go to your friends and you suggest something like No Nut November and they're not supportive of you, if even not like helping you join you, maybe you need better friends. Because you really need people around you who help promote the kind of person you want to be. It's easy enough to get along with a lot of people. True friends are going to hold you up. And so I sincerely hope that if you challenge your friends to No Nut November, in the very least, they're supportive of you in that. And you should be questioning who your friends are if they're not. That being said, accountability. I think this is a great place for us to promote our Facebook group, Kevin, but I was hoping you would kind of talk a little bit about community and what you set up here.
Yeah. So we have a free Facebook group. It's called Fapstinence Fam. It's awesome. It's really cool because, it started not too long ago. I started it, in the year 2020. So it's quite a new group, but it's popping, and people just go in there just saying, hey, I'm struggling. What tips, what advice do you have? Experts like myself, and especially an expert like Peter, who's like really adopted this lifestyle. Again, this is kind of more of a novel thing for me. Peter's been doing this for way longer. But we'll go in there and just help guys out, and other guys who are going through the journey. They keep each other motivated, accountable, sharing resources of, what helps them to, stick together. I know, something like this is kind of a weird thing, for me as someone who's on the internet, I'm very comfortable with being extremely vulnerable about what I like to talk about things that most people would consider an insecurity. So I'm a bit different, but I know for most guys, it's like weird to talk about how, hey, I'm addicted to porn, right? It's kind of like a weird, shameful thing. So we kind of created this community where you don't have to be ashamed because all of us are trying to quit porn too, or have and are trying to help each other out. So the more that you can fill up your environment, like we talked about before, even if it's just an internet environment, that helps out a ton, man, because, especially if you're going through a certain type of struggle, you're really stressed out and your pornography was your stress reliever before. You see someone make a post in the group talking about that same exact thing. You can chime in on how you're struggling too, and then Peter and I can come in and help give advice. It's awesome. Community is key, man. Community is key when it comes to conquering this stuff. So it's free. Just join it.
Yeah. The only thing that we ask that you do is to kind of fill out the questionnaire at the beginning. We want to understand your motivation for this. And it's important, as we've mentioned on the podcast, and we'll continue to mention on the podcast going forward, that you really understand what it is that makes you want to quit. In fact, that'll be coming up later in the show, finding your why. But on this episode of the Fapstinence podcast, we're really talking about why now is the perfect time to start your nofap, no nut journey. And I hope you'll join Kevin and myself in that. Today we talked about, what it is. What is No Nut November? Why should you do it? And next week, Kevin's going to be kind of walking us through the week by week of No Nut November, which he so recently did. And you can check out his YouTube as well to see a little bit more about that. But stay tuned in the next couple of episodes. We'll be talking about community. We'll be talking about what to expect week by week if you're going to do No Nut November. And we're going to be challenging you to join us on this journey.
All righty.